only nerd that like that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most about being in this comic book shop too, is like I'm not the only nerd that felt like I needed a space like this. You're not the only nerd who wanted to tell a story about superhero black women friends, like that live together and things like that. I think you definitely you did it. You did something with it, because it was so fun. Like I just remember reading the first couple times and being like, see, like someone did that. Like I don't have a version of that in my head. I just know that I wanted stuff like this, and to get. Hey y'all, it's your girl Charmaine from Gulf Coast Cosmos, and I am joined today on Gulf Coast Cosmos Presents with Stephanie Williams, one of the creators, authors of Nubia and the Amazons, which I guess I should have probably had in my hand. Pew, pew, pew. So I only have one copy of number 1 left, and it's the variant. But here's the other copies for 2 through 4. So I have Stephanie Williams here with me, who I've been fan stalking for a few years now. Ever since Living Heroes came out. This is my personal copy, everybody. The idea behind this book like kills me, but we'll get into it in a little bit. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, let everybody know who you are and things about you, and then we'll get into it.
All right. So, yes, I am Stephanie Williams. I am a comic writer, which is still very, I'm trying to get used to saying that as like my main title, because prior to this, I used to be a research scientist. I was an electron microscopist. I worked at a hospital. Thought I was going to go back to school, get my PhD, all of that. But that just wasn't where my heart was aligned. And after having my son, I just kind of got back into the stuff that I don't know, like I just really love. So it was reading comics, the different sci-fi movies that I love, like Alien, and just a lot of pop culture stuff, and found myself podcasting. So once upon a time ago, I used to podcast at a podcast called The Lemonade Show, and then also Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro, which was the one where we focused on Black superheroines and Black characters, Black women in comics, and just shone a light on them. And one of those characters was Nubia. And this is prior to me ever knowing that I would ever be writing for this character or writing comics professionally, period. But that goes to show you that you just never know. So you start the thing and you just kind of go along for the ride. So once Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro ended, I started writing because I was like, I gotta do something with this research. So I started writing for publications like Sci-Fi Wire, Sci-Fi Fangirls, Nerdist, Marvel, DC for their editorial side. And there was a film Kickstarter that I had prior to Living Heroes. And after that, that's when I was like, yeah, I want to produce a comic. I want to make something. And I was like, web comics, that's the more affordable route as a creator. Not saying that it's cheap, but it's a lot easier to pay for one page versus 22. So Parenthood Activate was the first one. That is just me retelling stories of tales of being a parent to my now 6-year-old. And from there, but what if though? And out of that came Living Heroes, and kind of the rest is history. So now here I am.
Yeah. So when I started, the first time I heard about you was on a podcast. I think you were a guest though. I think it was like Bitches That Read Comics or
Yep.
Comic Book Bitches or
Bitches
something like
don't,
that.
yep. Bitches don't comics. Yes.
Bitches Love Comics, that's what it was. And so I was listening and I was like, oh, I gotta look this person up. And so I started, that's when my fan stalking started. And then once your Ko-fi page popped up, that's when I got this. And honestly, I got it just because I liked you on the podcast and I was like, this sounds dope, I'm just gonna get it. Didn't know what to walk into or anything like that. And this, I finished reading it and I was like personally angry that this didn't exist in like a weekly show. Like I needed this in my life. Like the concept of, you know, the Black women heroes as living single, but in this own, oh my goodness. Like, so I told you I was going to fan out a little bit.
I appreciate it. And like, I wish that I could tell you that it was like this deep philosophical thing that led me to like this concept, but it wasn't. I was watching, I think Living Single had just got put onto Hulu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll often like read comics while I'm just kind of either binge watching something or just watching something in general. And also had a little bit of the greenery. And I was just kind of like watching Living Single and reading, and Living Single came out of me simply wanting to land the joke of Misty Knight needing a new roommate because Jean Grey died and the Phoenix Force doesn't pay rent. So thinking about Storm and her, you know, her, they've explored it some, but it's still untapped. Her history and ties to Harlem through her, through her dad and her aunt and uncle. And I was like, yeah, Storm would like have a brownstone or something like that. I can imagine she would have a little coin for that. And of course, Monica Rambeau, because Monica deserves love, and She-Hulk is always my white woman of color. She is not invited to the cookout, but she can get like, we'll bring her a plate. That just like that made sense for her to kind of be the Maxine, because she's also a lawyer, so low hanging fruit. But
yeah,
that is how Living Heroes came to be. And like when everybody kind of went up for it, Aaron and I did a second page that featured our very favorite winged ankle submariner, Neymar, and Sue and Reed Richards, and like that whole running joke of Sue cheating on Reed with him. And I was like, okay, so if I launch a Kickstarter, would y'all support this? And yeah, people did. It funded in almost 24 hours, which I am still floored 2 years later. So right? Because I just thought it was so niche.
Right.
I mean, this is the first time that you really get 3 Black women superheroes together on the page, just doing stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with their day job.
Yeah, so I'm the kind of nerd that I am is I will imagine what happened in between the pages. So I'm always like what happened if Storm ended up having to go like down to the bodega real quick, you know, or something like that. Like I think about this, or I think about like after the destruction of New York and say the MCU movies or whatever, like who had to clean up that mess? Like were there just like garbage men that were tapped for it? And so Damage Control and things like that were always kind of fun for me because they're these weird little side stories.
Yeah, I love Damage Control.
Yeah, like it's so nerd. It's like so nerdy, and I just love it. Like the idea of something like that. So this was just like, yeah, like if they went home after and they happened to live together, like what would this dynamic be? And also, just like you said, like you're seeing different Black women, different skin tones, all on the same page at the same time, and we're not always surrounded by white. Like media would have you think we're always one person of color, or you know, in a group of white people, and that's what our existence like, but. Like for me, it's not even the opposite. Like I have some white people friends, but I don't live near them. They're online. I don't even, you know, I'm not around them. So my life is very brown. A book like this is closer to my life. This is what it looks like. This is what the people I'm around look like. So yeah, so I was a nerd from the jump. I wish I had known about it beforehand because I didn't get into webcomics until like after Bingo Love and this, like that's when I started becoming more aware of like, oh, this is actually where we're at in creation, like because it makes that's an access point that we have. So I just want to say, like, for the nerd that wants to know what happens between the big panels, like this for me just was so good. Like I just love it. I don't fan out. Like I used to live in LA, I used to work in the film industry. Do not fan out about like celebrities and things like that. But like you tickled my nerd spot so hard that I was just like, when I got the yes, I was like, I'm going to die on this thing. I'm going to be a complete nerd because I'm going to talk about this, like how stupid I feel about how like much I love everything about it. So.
Well, I appreciate it. I really do. And I'm sure Aaron does, because I mean, it was a project. It was a labor of love. I don't even want to call it a labor. It was just something that we created out of love, because it's something we've been wanting to see. And like one of my favorite Toni Morrison quotes is like, write the thing that you want to see. Yeah. So I'm fortunate and thankful that I was able to do that.
Yeah. Well, it definitely hit. And when I do send it to friends that's my, like I told you off camera, I think that I have a stack of them that I have just for gifts to give to people. And every time I give it to someone like will tell me like, how do I get more of these? Something like that. And I'm like, I think they're about to run out. Cause I see you have your limited, like, it says,
I mean, and I try to like keep it, as print on demand if I can, or just order in bulk, and like I'll order some and I'll have a lot, and the next thing I know, I don't have any. I'm like, wait, where'd they all go?
Oh, I bought you out one time. There was one time when I was like, I'm gonna get these real quick because holidays are coming up. So yeah, and then maybe we could try to figure out a way to get into the store too. But yes, there's been times when like I even gave Byron, my co-owner here at Gulf Coast Cosmos, a copy as a gift, and his partner at the time started reading it first, and so it was like, wait, give me back my book. So like it is just a book that keeps on giving. I feel like anybody who picks it up gets really into it. So all right, I'm gonna do my best to just like be cool now, and I got my nerd out of the way, and we can get into
it's all right if it comes back up. Listen.
So yeah, big nerd fan, big time fan. So that's kind of the trajectory of how I started to fan stock you, is pretty much like hearing you on the podcast, getting Living Nerds. Living Hero.
Well, I mean, hey, that could be next.
Living
Nerds could be next.
And then finding out when the news was dropping, because we started to open a comic book shop, so we're very intentional here about a lot of the books we have. Of course, you can get your everyday books or whatever, but majority of the books that we showcase and the things that we have popping out are the things that have Black and brown characters on it, because that's the community we're servicing and that's who we are as well. So we knew Nubia was coming, and we thought, oh, like we're still small. People have to get a chance to get to know us. So we only ordered like 10 at first of issue 1. Big mistake, because like it barely like the second you tell people, because here in this shop there's a lot of people who came into the shop because we were new and novel, and they didn't even know that there was a character named Nubia and that she was an Amazon and things like that, and that she was Black. And so we would tell people about her existence, and they would basically throw away, like they would have a Wonder Woman book in their hand, be like, I remember Wonder Woman when I was a kid, I love Wonder Woman. And they were like, you know about Nubia? And then we tell them a little bit about Nubia, and they're like, oh, okay, we're just gonna put this back. And so like we have so many books. Like Diana is not selling at the moment because Nubia exists. And so yeah, we sold out of issue 1 too quickly. We had to try to get the back, so we got stuck in that back order phase. So we did end up getting more eventually, but now we're just down to 1, which is the variant cover is the last one we have. So anybody who's watching, that's it. Once it's gone, we can't get it no more. It's gone. And so we got smart. We started getting bigger numbers on 2, 3, and 4. So now we're able to keep the stock going and get new fans in as they're coming into the door. But the biggest thing that happens is when they see it is how specific the art is, like how intentionally Black the art is. From the cover, from the variants to the standard covers, and before you even flip the page, she's thick, she's beautiful, and people see themselves. Man, the Aletha cover. Oh yeah. Okay, so all the covers.
So the covers, so the covers have been phenomenal. The one that you were just holding, that is by Micah Souza, who is a phenomenal artist. There was another one done by Josh Sway, who is just
that one sold phenomenal. Out quick. That was a real quick sell for.
That was the first time I saw that, I was just like, wow. And from there, all of the artists that have done covers have just brought their A game. Like every single Nubia cover, from the standard cover to the variants, has just been off the charts.
It's been an emotional decision for people. Like seriously sitting
Yeah,
there holding, especially and I wish I had grabbed it, but I didn't. But
yeah, that
the variants for book number 3, like they'll sit there and go, I don't know how to deal with my life. Like I've had people just put them on hold too because they're like, I need to think of, I like sleep on it and
yeah,
come back because they're not necessarily collectors. They're just regular
yeah,
people that
but
are
like
getting
they're
into a
just
book and they want all the covers. So the covers more than any other books that I think even have grabbed me as a comic book nerd, like these feel like someone is telling us a story, like someone is telling us you're in this book,
yeah.
you know.
And that's the message that we wanted to have, especially in that first issue. When like that's so like my first time seeing it in all of its glory, I was just like, wow, this is brown and black as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy that it came out that way because that was always the intention, to make the mascara feel welcoming to everyone, and especially folks that maybe didn't feel as welcome before.
Mm-hmm.
Because my history with Diana is, I've always known about Wonder Woman. I mean, it's kind of hard to not know about her because
Right.
she is so embedded into just the pop culture lexicon. Like, it's really hard to not just like to never have heard of Wonder Woman.
She's at least part
Um,
of the trinity of DC.
exactly. Yes,
You know.
exactly. So, I mean, for me, my introduction to her was through the cartoons. So it was Justice League. Huge Dwayne McDuffie fan, and I just, his writing is just always there. And that's when I like fell in love with Diana. I was like, okay, like I get it with her character, and then started getting into the comics that she was in some of her titles. But when I read some, I'm like, man, it's like it's real white on the mascara for a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. And then going back and then reading George Perez's run and seeing like, oh, like this is where we start to see some diversity on the mascara. It's not a ton, but it's enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you kind of see the progression, you see a regression, and then a further progression. And I just thought, like, yeah, so it is 2021 or 2022 now. But anyway, let's make sure that for Nubia to be queen of this island, that one, you're going to care. And the only way that you're going to care about that is if you're invested in the other Amazons, is why it's
Mm-hmm.
called Nubia and the Amazon. So it's just important to reintroduce her to the public, as well as the Amazons with the mascara and just life with the mascara.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure that, whoever was picking this book up, there was at least someone that you felt, represented you or was close enough. So
Right.
when they told us that we could create 5 new Amazons, I was like, great. None of them are going to be white. So is that okay? And it was. And then we just kind of, it was off to the races from there.
Mm. So what was the how did it happen? What was the first like
Oof.
you're gonna be the one?
That I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that, because this time last year I was waiting for, like, I was in heavy anticipation of my very first official, I guess, major comic book debut to come out. And that was for Marvel Voices Legacy with the Monica
Mhm.
Rambeau story that I wrote. And I'm like on pins and needles about that. So Vita called me one day and was like, hey, would you be interested in writing Amazons? I'm like, well, absolutely, I'll be interested. I want to write anything, but definitely some Amazon. So
Mhm.
they told me that they gave a copy of Living Heroes to the editor at DC, and that they would hopefully be in touch. So the week that Marvel Voices Legacy #1 came out is the same week that I spoke to Brittany. And I thought that I had maybe scared her off, because like when I get to talking about like just comics in general, like I can go all day. And I kind of did with like my love of just Diana, the Amazons, and wanting to see the Amazons show more personality so that you would remember them when you if they're not on the page with Diana or Hippolyta or Philippus, like you would remember some of the other ones.
Mhm.
And then also just this opportunity to possibly explore Nubia and take a lot of like the bits and pieces that we've gotten of her over the years, which hasn't been a lot, but
Mhm.
there's been enough to just kind of figure out a foundation for her character. And knowing that, the success of Future State, so Elle McKinney's story and that, and then also Nubia Real One, like it wasn't like people were fully unaware of Nubia, but like they still needed to know more. Like she needed her definitive story and one that separated her from Diana. Like no
Mm-hmm.
shade to Diana, but like it's important for Nubia to stand on her own as any
Right.
character.
As any character.
So yeah, so Brittany was like, okay, like, would you like to write a story for Wonder Woman Black and Gold too? And I was like, I absolutely would. Can I write a story with Diana and Nubia in it? Not even knowing that I would be writing Nubia in Amazon. So I got the all clear for that. I did it, and I want to say maybe 2 or 3 weeks after turning in that. No, actually, it wasn't even that long. Like a week or two after turning in that script, uh, Vita called me. I thought that they wanted to talk about my script for Wonder Woman Black and Gold. So for like an hour or so, we were both talking about two very different things. They were talking about Nubia and the Amazons. I'm talking about the script. And I guess finally Vita was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But like, so what are your plans for Nubia? And I'm like, well, the story only 8 pages long. So this is as far as they go. And they were like, no, for like the mini series. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about it.
Right.
So in an unofficial way, I found out that way. And then from there, I found officially that I would be co-writing a series with them. And I don't know, like I was floored.
Yeah.
Not to discount myself as a writer, but like I have not been writing comics professionally for a long time. And the way things go, you often feel like, well, you gotta like really grind out for a very long time to get this huge opportunity. But like I've been doing the work. It's just been in different formats.
Different
And
format.
yeah, and I was more than ready for the opportunity. I thought it would be just a great opportunity to have Vita as a mentor, because in comics you really don't get the mentor mentee type situation, and also a chance to really flesh out the story for a character that has meant a lot to me as well as other folks, and finally give her time to stand out and start cultivating the story and the space for her in the DC universe. So I'm thankful that we've been able to do that. It's wild to say that I've written an entire mini series and also a tie-in with Trial on the Amazons, and there's more Nubia content to come.
Yeah.
So like this is only the beginning.
That's amazing. And for just a split second, like shout out and love letter to Vita. For those of you who might not be as familiar, Vita has written Morbius.
So much.
So many things. Wonder Woman,
New Mutants,
a bunch of X-Men stuff. Actually, one of my favorite books is the Prisoner X series. Just all kinds of things. Also, just as a person, just loving, caring, supportive, motivating. I met Vita at a Comic-Con 3 years ago, and we've stayed in contact ever since. They were a guest on my other podcast, Blurred Comics. Every now and then, some of the stuff that we talked about in person led me to like make the decision to actually say yes and open this open this comic book shop with Byron. And I've even sent messages to them like, you may not realize this, but like this conversation we had is the reason I said yes to this thing. And then they immediately turn it around on me. It's like, it's not because of the conversation we had. It was already there. You just needed a reason to put it somewhere or something like that. So as a person, extremely motivating, supportive, and then forget about like an amazing storyteller. So
absolutely. It's funny you bring that up because I told Vita the same thing. So years ago when I was podcasting, I had them on to talk about the Wilds. And like we stayed in contact after that, and Vita had said to me like, hey, because at this time like I'm just doing a Twitter thing, going viral and stuff like that. And Vita's like, do you have any like writing samples or anything like that? I'm like, well, I don't have any yet. I'm like, well, start thinking about that and working on it. So like, if I am, talking to somebody, like I can be like, hey, here's some work. So I put that in my back pocket, and lo and behold, that is the thing. So Vita is, like you said, extremely encouraging and probably a little prophetic as well, because they don't know that, but their words really do. They come to at least give you the power to to manifest the things into existence. So
Yeah.
probably need to start asking Vita for a lot of numbers, honestly.
I mean, I like I understand why they turn it around to be like, no, this is you, it's all
Yeah.
you. And so I get it and I appreciate it, but I say the same thing. It's just like what comes out of their mouth ends up like just swirling around in the head. And I don't know 100% that I would have said yes to doing
Absolutely.
this, or believing that it was reasonable to
Yeah.
try, had I not thought about some of the stuff that I've heard Vita say, or in the conversations that I've had as well. So just want to throw that little love letter because
Yeah.
they're dope. What's the writing process between the two of you in this?
So that has been really cool. It's kind of been like a training, like a bike training wheel type situation. So
Mm,
we come together we did the plot, the story outline and all of that. And then Vita was like, okay, well, you'll be scripted. So I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, like so I script by myself, and that was very scary.
mm,
Because like of course I've written comics before, but I hadn't written anything long form. So
mm,
it's very different. And Vita was like, well, let me tell you something. You already do something that's very hard anyway, and that is short form storytelling. So to be able to
mm,
land the jokes the way that you are in such limited space, you'll be fine. Like I know it looks daunting, but like you'll be fine. So from their direction and also our amazing editor, Brittany Holzer, it's just been a great experience. I've been able to see myself grow from issue to issue, apply
mm.
stuff that Vita has either showed me or something that Brittany has pointed out and like apply it. So I read the first script that I wrote like a couple weeks back and I was like, ooh, this is rough. And it was just like me getting the hang of how to pace and storytelling and like, show, don't tell, and
Mm,
giving the artist direction, because that's the beautiful thing about comics is that you can show and you don't have to tell, and you can do more interesting things with exposition because it's something that a lot of folks don't care for. And I get
mhm,
it because sometimes I don't, but if you can give the exposition in a way that is at least interesting and engaging, then it
mhm.
works. So I think honestly, I feel so thankful to have this type of writing setup that I've had because I've been able to learn so much and then apply it immediately afterwards.
Mm.
So now I'm like, you know, plotting and doing a whole thing by myself, but I feel confident in doing that. And I don't think I would, I mean, eventually I probably would have, but I don't know
Sure.
if I would feel as strongly and confident as I do if I didn't have that time with Vita throughout the series.
Mm.
And again, like having a great editor is gold. And Brittany has definitely been that. So it's been a I don't know, like it's just been like a really beautiful and just nurturing type of situation. And I know in comics that isn't always something that happens. It should,
Sure.
but it
Yeah.
isn't. And hopefully we can work to change that. But I just feel very fortunate.
That's amazing. I'm excited too also to find out that like you have that experience because I feel a lot of you in this book for real. One of the things that you're described as is also like a comic book historian, but you also because you're a research assistant, I think that's just your natural
Hmm.
way of
It
you
is.
tend to be like that. And you can feel that on the page, like the little bubbles that kind of tell you about the history of some moment or something
Yeah.
like that. For those people who like, for me, I don't read a lot of Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I have different issues related to Wonder Woman's history that makes it harder for me to read them. Um, until Vita told the story about what they thought Wonder Woman was when they grew up, and I was like, oh, now I kind of want to read Wonder Woman with that lens. Vita thought Diana was Puerto Rican
I
because
mean, same because of the
you did
Ola,
too.
right? Yes, that's the whole.
Because the
So
Ola, the big gold earrings.
I didn't, yes. So I didn't, and then sometimes the way that she was drawn too. So that's the thing. I feel like for a lot of white characters that have a special place in my heart, it's because I didn't see them as that way.
Right, right.
Big, so well, so Big Barda and Mr. Miracle, like they are clearly, I guess Caucasian or whatever, but they're from Apocalypse, so whatever. the way that I've always read them has not been that way. So that's why I
Mm,
always felt close to them and their story, because like they're on Apocalypse. They're like doing this child boot camp with Granny Goodness. Like all this, they got to be hard. They have to do all these things to survive. They're not really allowed vulnerability, but they're able to still find love. And I think of just my experience as a queer Black woman and having to be out in the world and have to put up a hard front in order to protect myself
mhm.
sometimes, but still being able to find vulnerability and find love. I thought of the same thing with Scott and Barta. So, yes, very similar with Diana, because it just didn't click at first. I was like,
Mm,
oh, wait. Then when I found out she was white, I was like, oh, well, it's fine
it's
now
fine.
because
It's fine.
my lens is a lot different. And also just thinking about just the Amazons in general, that they're on Themyscira, so they wouldn't have to deal with the same type of racial constructs that we do. So things would be a little bit different, but it's just still hard kind of making that disconnection
Mhm.
anytime when you're reading fiction, to think of this world or this particular utopia, especially when the utopia at the time looks so blonde.
Yeah.
So I listen,
When
totally get it.
diversity is the fact that the character has brown hair versus
Exactly.
like brown
And
skin is,
yes.
yeah,
And
that's
for a
a
little
whole.
and for a time, the mascara was like a bunch of brunettes and blondes. I'm like, yeah, this isn't. If this is supposed to be an island for women to go to, who have been just harmed in unimaginable ways in man's world, it would definitely not just be looking like that if
Yeah.
we keep it in 100. So,
Yeah.
and with that in mind, that is another reason why I was like, no, the mascara has to reflect what we see in our day-to-day lives.
Right. Yeah, I definitely feel it. So like I even look at some of the characters that you have introduced, and um like there's something about Andromeda that I get, like that I can feel. There's something about Baya that I feel, and it's like it doesn't matter that our skin tones don't match up. It's
Yeah,
literally like we're brown women, queer women that they're
yeah,
this stuff
yeah.
is well, I guess I'm reading most of them as queer, but that
I
could be my
mean,
own
and that's so, but that's fair though, because that's the way that I kind of read, always just assume for the Amazons. I'm like, if not saying that like all of them are queer just because they're on this island, it's just women, but like I would think of, I don't know, like that's the way of life, so why wouldn't that be
Why
the
wouldn't
case?
it? Yeah.
And yeah, so that was the other thing, like when I asked if, like, can we definitely definitively make like announce that like Bia is a Black trans woman, because I thought that was really important. Vita did too, because with the Well of Souls, again, this is a place where women go who are harmed in unimaginable ways in man's world. So why wouldn't trans women be Amazons?
Part of that, yeah.
And not even just because of that, but like, why would they not be Amazons? So to say on a divine level that, of course, the mascara would be full of trans women as well as just cis women.
Right.
I was happy that we were able to do that, because so for so long, a lot of folks have had to rely on subtext in
Hmm.
comics. If you are a student of Christopher Claremont, as I am, like you know all about
Gave
subtext.
us our little queer
Yes,
lives
yeah,
when
right.
we were growing up.
So, so like we both understood the importance of
Yeah.
just having a character exist and say, "Hey, we are telling you that Bia is a Black trans woman, and she is important to
Hmm.
Themyscira, and to her community, just as trans people are to us in real life, specifically Black trans women."
Hmm.
So, again, like, editor was like, "Yes, please go ahead," and that was the way to also bring back and make the Well of Souls, just as the Cavern of Souls was important in George Perez's run, a
Hmm.
central focus on Themyscira.
Yeah, I do like I remember reading the first issue and feeling like I had to reframe any knowledge I thought I had previously about like the existence of the Amazons, Themyscira, Wonder Woman. Like it just like it just reframed
Good.
it in a way that fit an existence closer to mine. So it's, you're saying Bia, not, I was saying Bia.
Oh
It's
yeah, Bia. I'm sorry.
Bia.
And
No, I just want to make sure I say it right too.
yes, Bia.
So when I was reading Bia, like my gender identity is not exactly the same, but very, there's hints that are
Yes.
telling me that there's something like what we have going on. I identify as bigendered because like the binary I feel is very strong in me versus non-binary or full femme or anything like that. And so like reading that character, it's like, okay, so I got a spot here. The same way with bisexual identity is people would say like, oh, bisexual identity is transphobic, and I'm like, no, actually, because I don't say that trans women aren't women or trans men aren't men. I like two genders. I know that part. I like masculine presenting men and feminine presenting women. So still fits for me, like that kind of thing. And so to see a character like that in any kind of comic or geeky thing that I'm into now, for the first time in my existence as a 40-year-old person, I'm finally starting to see characters that are more closely aligned to me versus like, I mean, I'm very appreciative of X-Men growing up because that's where I did get my like secret little queer life and things like that. But now now it's not secret. Now she's here. She's on the page and I get her. Like,
yes.
I feel like I get her.
And that's so important. Even with the other new Amazons that come, so Xena, Carisi, and Delphine, and Andromeda, like for Delphine to make it known, like, yes, this is a Southeast Asian woman. For Xena, like, yes, this is a Filipino woman. This is they're here. And I'm like, what other way can we like phone home for folks? And I was like, well, can they be in their natural, like, can they be in garbs that they possibly would have worn in Man's World, like something to pay homage to where they may be from, even though they don't remember their past lives. And it's comics. So yeah. So that was another thing, just to like try to make it as clear as possible to folks. Like, you're picking this book up, like, I just hope that you're able to find someone or someone adjacent that you're able to find a through line to. And the other thing was to just really open up Themyscira for future writers, so that whatever stories they want to tell, if they want to tell a story with Bia, just someone else that they feel empowered to do so, because we've said, hey, this is what it is. You don't have to fight. You don't have to argue with anybody. Otherwise, you don't have to get evidence and look into subtext, because we're saying like definitively, like, look, this is what exists.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel it, and I appreciate you so much for putting that in. I also appreciate that you made a DC book, but you made a Stephanie Williams book.
Which I didn't. So, and that's the funny thing, because I didn't know that was going to happen. So, but then again, I figured that it would. I've always, so from podcasting to just either the comics journalism or just writing about just movies or TV shows in general, it was really hard for me to remove myself. So I was like, I won't even try to do that. And I think it was with Living Heroes because of the success of that, to be quite honest, because it was so very much me. And the fact that it was it was funded in 24 hours and people love it so much, that just gave me the confidence to just say, okay, doesn't matter if I'm writing for the big two or not, I'm still going to bring what I do to the table, because essentially that's why I'm here. So it really makes me happy to hear that, because as any writer, like, it's really hard to be vulnerable in your writing. That's scary. You're putting it out for the masses to read, to judge, and to do everything else with. So yes, I think anything I write will always be me. Like, it's just, I can't divorce myself from my work, even if I tried. So that really makes me happy to hear.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we are coming a little bit close to the end. So why don't you let everybody know how they can find you and follow you? I know you're on a social media break a bit, but like how people can find you and follow you.
Yeah. So Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, you can follow me at Steph_I_Will. TikTok, you'll get some of my videos. It's really where I just kind of, have my fun over there. Instagram, I'm a little bit more active, but if you do catch me on Twitter, say hi. I will try my best to say hi back. It's just that my mentions are always a mess when I come back on
That's
there.
what, yeah,
So
that's what it is.
yeah, so that's pretty much that. But please feel free. There'll be more announcements coming. I have other comic works on the way, some more stuff with DC. So just please be on the lookout. And I hope that you all are not tired of Nubia, because there is just all the
No.
Nubia content I can give you. Trust me, I will.
Please bring it. And also you have a Kofi or I don't know how to say that. Kofi page, co-fee.
Child, I couldn't even tell.
I
So
don't know how to say
coffee,
that, but that's how
Kofi,
you get
whatever
this.
it is. Yes.
That's how you get this one.
If you go to ysteph.com, it should take you to a link to my coffee or Kofi page. Also on my Twitter, my link tree bio is there. Same thing with Instagram. So if you go there, you'll be able to find a copy of Living Heroes. And because this is my first time sharing this, I will be making the Living Heroes PDF available to everyone to celebrate the 2-year anniversary. So I'll have more information on that soon. But as a 2-year celebration, and just as like a huge thank you, because I don't think I would be here where I am now if it wasn't for the success of that book, to release it to the masses for free, to make that accessible. And you can still get the physical copy too.
Yeah, and please do, because it's just fun to have it. But yes, I think I think you just touched on something. Like, you're not the only nerd that, like, that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most about being in the comic book shop too, is like, I'm not the only nerd that felt like I needed a space like this. You're not the only nerd who wanted to tell a story about superhero Black women friends, like,
yeah,
that live together and things like that. I think you definitely you did it. You did something with it, because it was so fun. Like, I just remember reading the first couple times and being like, see, like, someone did that. Like, I don't have a version of that in my head. I just know that I wanted stuff like this. And to get it, it was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me on my Gulf Coast Cosmos Presents. I have been I've been hoping that I would see you at a con. I just haven't been to a con that you've been to at the same time, so I'm really glad to actually get to meet you this way. But yeah, I will continue to stalk and continue to hype forever. But thank you so much.
No, thank you, and thank you so much to all your patrons and everyone. Just thank you all.
Yeah, it's amazing the feeling to see, like, a person who hasn't grabbed a book before, or they have, but they haven't seen themselves in a book before, and they pick up Nubia. I mean, that's
what it's for.
Yeah, it's good. But thank you so much.
No, thank you.